with FacetsUI editor, we can generate React Native code. And I'm going to show how is this React Native code looks like and how to extend this code. Let's add component inside a device. It will be a gallery list. And generate a React Native code with this gallery. Let's install a package. And let's run the application. Okay, as we see it working here, and let's go to the React Native code source and see how the structure looks like. It contains components folder, models, navigation, screens, and app.js. App.js, this is the main file of the React Native application. Let's open this. And here we see that it renders app container. In app container is screens list. This is navigation main component. As we see here is one screen, and this screen contains three files. The first file is the main file. This is a file. This is a React Native component, and it render. It initialize a store. It define a store for this screen. The store includes everything about this screen, every component properties for this screen. If we open a store, we can see here that it extends store base, and in store base we just open init state, go through this cycle and define children for all component for all element of the store. If we open the init state, we can see here a flat property list that repeats exactly the same three components, three items from FacetsUI editor. Like this. Here is components of the screen, and these components exactly the same components in this flat array. Only it has only a flat structure. The main thing that we have to understand of this structure is when a property has ID, the same ID as here, ID inside the editor, and path. Path means the exactly path through tree how to get a specific component. If we take another property item, we can see here in path only one item, and this is an item is ID from his parent. In this way, we can define all children for all elements. So exactly in this application, in this structure, it's done in this way. Now, what I want to do here, I want to create one component that will be a gallery items and that will contain this item list, but it has to render this item list as an array because in real time those items we can download from backend or define in the store, and it is easier to add their additional items or remove extra items. It's easier to have one component that will render array and render every item from this array. Now we can find this wrapper, this gallery inside FacetsUI editor. When we press this item, this is a gallery list, we can see here ID. Let's copy this ID and let's search this ID in this list. We can find this item by this ID in this list. This item render a component. Here will be a base component. If we open this component, we can see that it takes children, takes different properties, also transit properties. Transit properties we can get from transit style. It defined from transit styles. And when this transit exists, we check properties of transit and render and define a specific component regarding properties of transit. Let's see here in this init state again, and we can find here property scroll with subproperty horizontal true. And if we try to find these properties here, we will find it as a transit scroll, and we can see here that a component takes a scroll view component as a component. So let's create separate component with a scroll view and render scroll view inside this component. Let's define imports. And export. And to make it working, we have to change this component on just right now created gallery wrapper component. And let's see what we render right now. Good, we redefined gallery wrapper, and now we can add inside this gallery wrapper our items as an array of items. Let's define items inside this component. For example, with property name item 1, and let's copy and paste the rest. And now let's create item. Let's create item. Let's go to the init state. And here we can see that it has gallery item wrapper. And we can see this gallery item wrapper in the editor as well. Let's create gallery item wrapper. And here will be a property name, or maybe let's take property item. It will be property item. Text. And export. Let's fix gallery wrapper. Add here gallery item wrapper. It will has key and item. And let's see. Okay, it includes already our items, 4 items, but as we see here will direction row, and to fix this we have to apply here a style that we created in the FacetsUI editor, the same style, and we can find this style inside this init state. If we open gallery wrapper again, we can see here a styles property. Let's open, and we can see here that by key it has style sheet create that contains a main class style. Let's take this style and apply to the scroll view. Let's take this style ID and we take the class. It has only one class item, and this is exactly the class item that we have to use inside the gallery wrapper. Good, and let's see. Nothing changed. Let's check why it didn't change. Okay. It also we have to check. We have to see that here is horizontal true. So we have to apply this horizontal true property inside scroll view. Let's take this and apply to our scroll view. Now we see it fixed. Okay, let's apply style for gallery item wrapper. And the same class main. Let's check what we have. Good. One more thing, we have to add all the elements inside this gallery item wrapper. As we see here, gallery item wrapper contains children. How we can check this? As I said before, we have to check the past last element, and if this element will be the same ID, it will be a child of this component. If we take this ID, this last element of path, we can find that this is the same ID as this one ID of this one component. So this is a child of this one component. Let's create one more element inside the gallery item wrapper. This will be base component. So if it has not have transit style, it will be a view component. Also, let's add here style. It will be style component 7. Let's take ID and main class. Let's see. Good. Now let's go far, and here we can see that this one component includes the next one child. Here's as well, we can check this when we take last element of the path array. And it has component text-based component. Let's open this component. This component very similar to the base component, but only one thing here. This component used for images and for texts. And if this component has transit styles, it means that it has a transit element, and depends on property of this transit element, we can define component and extra properties for this component. Let's see transit style, and what we see here, it has additional style and SRC. If it has SRC, it means that it's an image component. Let's see here. If this is SVG or gradient or scroll, if not of those properties, it means that it has SRC, because here is transit SRC property can be in this transit element. So here we can see that this component has to define fast image component. Let's take this fast image component and add it into the as a child for this view. Also, it has style. Let's take style. Style, it will be style component text. Style ID. And main class. Also, let's open again text-based component. It has additional style. If we open these transit styles again, we can see here additional style, resize mode. Let's take this object and add it in the style of this fast image. We can wrap this style in the array to use several style objects. Good. Also, we have to add here a source with URI property. URI property, and let's pass this URI property with property item. And let's fix our wrapper. The wrapper, we change this URI on path to the image. This src we have to add to the as URI. And the last one, and let's check. Good. Now it has all images inside our gallery wrapper. Now we can see here that we have all items, images, and we have to add one change here. We have to highlight only selected image and disable the rest of images. How we can do this? If we open in state again and see into gallery item wrapper, if we see to this element properties for our image component, we see here transit style, and it has two styles, two different styles for two different state of this component. So it can be enabled or disabled. If we want to have this item inactive, we have to apply style gallery inactive. Let's see how it works. As you see, this is inactive, a state of this component. To make it working, we have to add one more property that we can call an active. And then, if property active, we apply main class. Otherwise, inactive class. And let's add this property active to the element properties. Good. And now, first element is active, the rest of them inactive. And one more thing, we have to add here an action. If we open init state again and go to the gallery item wrapper, we can see here an action property. It means this component have to be clickable. If we open a base component and find this about action, props has action, it means that property has action. We can see here that component has to be touchable opacity component. Let's take this component and go to the gallery item wrapper and change on touchable opacity component. And now we can add here on press property. And let's pass this on press callback through properties of component. And let's pass this callback inside this gallery item as a property. On press, and let's add here console log to be sure that it works properly. And let's check it in the debugger. As we can see, it works properly. And now here we have to extend our code, and the good thing is to keep view components clean from business logic. We have to separate business logic from view and keep our components to show only data of the application. The good way is to move all business logic to the store of the screen. In this React native application used Mobix for state for the store management, and we can use Mobix API to make our components reactive and re-rendered. Let's take these items and move them to the store. Also, we have to remember all components that we initialize inside this init state can take store as a property. Let's take the store and apply to take items. Let's see, everything okay? Yes, everything okay, everything works. Let's go further and let's add this on press callback inside the store, and we can call it on item press. Let's pass index first, and then a callback itself. And let's call console log to be sure that it works properly with index. Let's make sure it works. Good, it works. And now we can add logic that will change active property for every element of this items array. We can just go through items, living cycle for each, and apply our index to check is this element active or not. And let's see. As we see, callback works, but images doesn't change. This is because we have to add a Mobix API to these components, to methods and properties to make it observable. To do this, firstly we can separate this object as a class entities. Let's build the image store. And it will have observable active property. Let's add constructor here, URI and active, and it will be by default false. Good, and let's make this object and make here image entity, image store entity. Good, and now we have to add a method with mombex property action set active. And here we can apply this method. Let's check. It still doesn't work because we have to add observer for every component of small images. We have to wrap this component inside a hook that's called observer. And let's check again. And now we can see that it works. And now we have to change this main image working by selected small images. So when we select a small image, the same image has to be in the big image as well. Let's see again to the init state. Here we can define, and let's go to the editor, and here we can see that it has main image and main container, and inside of the main container the list of the items of images. We can change this, we can make it more easier. We can add there one element and just change path to the image. If image will be active, we will take from there a path and apply this path to the main image. Let's do this. Let's define this container. It will be ID. Let's copy this ID to find this ID in this list. It will be main image container. Let's create a component. Let's call it main image, or maybe better big image. Big image. Image. And also remember that functions, components that we initialize inside init state has access to the store property. Let's define the store as a property. and it will return a view. Also, I have to don't forget to use every component from the tree. This is because every component has uh, his own style, and we have to apply those styles inside our components. So let's import this one. Let's export this component and define this component here as a main image. This will be big. Even better, let's rename big image as a main image to make it more consistent and useful and convenient in our React Native application. And we take style, ideal style, and class main. Let's add inside one more view that will be container. Main image container. And also let's take style with key, and main class. And let's see what we have. Good, we have empty field here, and now we have to add here component with properties like in this property. It has transit style, so if we see here, it has style, additional style, resize mode, and SRC. So it will be an image like here, fast image. Like let's take this fast image inside main image. It has style. Also, we wrap it inside the array to use several style objects. And source. For source, we have to take source URI of active element. Here we can use as well Mobex API, and we can define computed property. Computed property with get, and it will be active image. Then we just find active image from items. And here we can take URI from store active image and use this URI as a source inside fast image. Let's see. Let's refresh. Something wrong. Okay, let's find what is wrong here. Oh, so I have to return. And now we can see that nothing changed. It's because we didn't wrap this main image with observer hub. Let's do this. And now it works. Good, so we redefined our React Native application. We extended it to use business logic, and this is not difficult, this is quite easy, and it still allows us to create UIs very fast and use their styles, and we here just need to add a specific business logic to this application.